Hello and welcome back to Reading Glasses. This is part 2 of our conversation with Nina Pantelic, Metropole Atlas. We discussed 2 of the books that have inspired all 3 of us, the first being Ferenc Karinthy's Metropole, a short novel about a world-renowned linguist who finds himself in a city where he cannot communicate with anyone. An exploration of the dangers of loneliness. The second, David Mitchell's Cloud Atlas, a sweeping novel through time and space and genres that explores relationships, love, loss, and connections across the generations. 2 very different books, but both books that we all share a love for.
Well, I definitely borrowed a book of yours that you lent me with the intention of the idea of me returning it to you, and it turned out to be one of...
Where is that?
I gave it back to you. I did.
Yeah, you did.
Are we talking about Metropole?
We are talking about Metropole. It was as wonderful as you had described it.
I have to say, Ben introduced me to that book as well, and I didn't want to give it back. I wanted to keep it and read it at least twice a year.
Really?
I literally burnt through that book in about 2.5 days, and it hurt giving it back. It's it's one of the best short books I have read in a very, very long time.
See, that makes me very happy. Because I think that's the main goal when you give a book that you care about to another person, is that, I don't know, it's like a dual reaction. You want them to enjoy it, but at the same time, you're afraid that they might not. I don't know, there's this pressure that you want them to experience it in the same way, but nobody ever experiences the same book in the same way, do they?
Well, I think the 3 of us agree here that that book in particular definitely had an impact on us, maybe because we are migrants or immigrants, depending on what side of the border you're looking at. Maybe because I think Kafka it's not by Kafka, but there's definitely a Kafka-esque influence, stays with people.
It's the absurdity of his situation, it's the hopelessness of a man who is self-proclaimed an expert in linguistics and communication and fails miserably to express even the most basic thought throughout the entire book.
I think anyone that's lived abroad or that lives abroad can associate with it.
I think that's probably the key. It's finding yourself
and
lost.
the lack of resolution. And I thought that the lack of resolution was absolutely brilliant.
Oh, so we're not into spoilers being a problem then?
No.
Seriously, how many people are going to come across this book in their lifetime unless they know best?
It's actually very rare. It is quite rare. It's difficult to get hold
I
of.
found it this summer.
What?
I found it in a bookstore in New York City in the section that was labeled
Ben.
East European.
Yeah, that copy's probably mine. Does it have my stamp in it? Check it.
Close. It was wedged in there between Alexander Hemon books and other contemporary South and East and Central European writers.
We see, Ben and I, although we lived together in a flat, we actually first started to bond as friends over David Mitchell's Cloud Atlas. We both discovered it was our favourite book at the time, and
I've moved on.
I know you've moved on. But you see, the conversation we had was about our disappointment with the film. How the film really failed to capture the experience of the book, and how it should have been basically a HBO miniseries.
That would have done it justice.
Yep.
It is kind of strange when you bond over a book, because it's kind of like you've both dated the same person. You start talking about the things that you like about it, and it's the same. So this is weird.
I find Cloud Atlas is a very good yardstick. If someone gives me back Cloud Atlas and goes, I go, well, nothing more than Facebook friends for you then.
I was this close to bringing you the Bone Clocks. This close.
The Bone Clocks.
His more recent book.
See, I've read a few David Mitchell, and Black Swan Green is good, but it doesn't grab. None of them grab in the same way as Cloud Atlas. Cloud Atlas it's the journey, it's the complexity, it's the diversity of style. It's when you read it the first time, it's best not to know what's going to happen, because if you did like me, you get to that page where the first section finishes, and you kind of go, what? Hey, what's going on? Are there pages missing? What's going on?
Yeah.
And then you start that next section, and it's a totally different style, and it's all the same author. I think it's like someone's
journey. cut up 5 different books and just intermittently posted them into the same spine. It just, the way that it jumps back and forth like that. I mean,
but you see, it doesn't jump back and forth, does it? Because it actually goes up and it comes down again. And you only see that when you get to the end of the book, how it's the journey up the mountain.
You're
and
constantly
then back down
looking for the connection, the stitching.
That's what makes it fun as well. It's a bit like a massive literature version of Where's Wally. You are hunting for clues all the time while you're reading it. You know, oh, his birthmark is the same shape as the horse's sticker that he had in 1923. Oh my God!
By the time you get to the third one, you're like, oh, that's the connecting factor.
I'm tired of this motif.
What I really enjoyed about that is that all of the separate stories, I mean, they have their own life, they have their own lifespan. You can read them completely independently and enjoy them. But yeah, anyway, we could talk about Cloud Atlas.
The reason I mentioned Cloud Atlas is because it was it was one of our first topics of conversation regarding books as getting to know each other, but also because Cloud Atlas basically took the concept of the novel and transformed it. It was it's not a collection of short stories. It's not a novel as we understand it, and it's rare for me to be engaged with a book which is so technical in the way that it's written, as opposed to just a bloody good story.
That's
basically
the reason why I picked up the book and finished the first chapter, or struggled through it, and then left it behind for another 2 months before I was able to actually read it. Confession. Second confession. The only reason I have the book is because apparently there was going to be a movie made on it, and I can't see a movie without reading the book first.
Have you seen the film?
I have, and it was utterly disappointing. Also, is Tom Hanks just repeating his role in Castaway in there?
I think he's been doing that in all the films.
He's been doing that for a while now. I mean, I thought the film was, as Mark Kermode might say, it had a good heart.
They tried.
It
Bless
tried.
their little cotton socks.
But it shouldn't have been a film. It should have been a full-on HBO series. But there you go. Never mind.
It's too imaginative for cinema. Anyway.
Yeah, that was a little digress into Cloud Atlas.